Welcome to today's session. We are going to be looking at loneliness today. So something I think very pertinent during these COVID times. I certainly feel quite a bit of loneliness most days. And I'm sure many others who live alone or others who are far away from family and loved ones, well, as I am, it can feel quite overwhelming at times, the sense of loneliness. So let's have a look at it. Okay, let's first gently warm up the body. So making any movements we need to in order to sit this morning. Rolling the head the other way. And moving the neck the other way. Doing some twists. And rolling the spine up, so if we tuck the belly in, roll the shoulders out, push the shoulders out, and then coming in, sticking the chest out, waking up the spine, letting it know that we're gonna sit for a little bit and we need its strength and length so that we can breathe in through this energy. We can breathe in a full deep breath into the lungs. Okay. So in order to set the tone of the session, I'm gonna just encourage you to, or challenge you to change our mind frame about loneliness. So in psychology and mainstream life, we think of negative and positive emotions. And I don't really find that helpful. Now, I studied psychology for a lot of years, many years, and I worked in it. And we used to say, that there's good emotions, bad emotions. It's okay to feel this way. This is the goal, is to feel this way, is to be happy all the time and content. And I guess the same in Buddhism, because, this is love and kindness, compassion, let's be happy. If we find compassion for others, we'll be happy. But the happiness that they define, Buddhism, is very different to what we define, in psychology ways. So happiness is about this, as I've mentioned before, this storm happening around us, and we're sat in the eye of the storm, and we're sitting with it, and we're comfortable with it, and our minds aren't going, oh my God, I gotta feel better. Oh my God, I feel lonely. I have to stop this. I feel so angry. I gotta do something to stop it. It's more like, I feel angry today. How can I rationally do something about that? How can I sit with that? I feel sad today. It's how can I sit with that and deal with it? And so that's what we're going to do with loneliness. It's not a problem. It's not something that needs to be solved. Okay, loneliness here and there is completely normal. Everybody experiences it. When it overwhelms us and consumes us, it can make us feel cut off from society. It can make us feel as if we don't belong. And during this time, that's when we can change our perspective on what loneliness is. So accepting that it's a normal emotion, as is anger, as is sadness, those are the only bad emotions see, it's, we're trained in this way to think about it, but uncomfortable, unpleasant emotions that we don't like, but they're actually really normal. And if we learn how to make friends with them, that cheesy line that I say, which is just so relevant, then we can get through life much calmer, much easier, much happier, if you like. So what Buddha says is that nothing is ever alone. And a quote from him is that all things appear and disappear because of the concurrence of causes and conditions. Nothing ever exists entirely alone. Everything is in relation to everything else. So that's quite a big quote that you might want to Google later, just Buddha loneliness, that quote comes up. But basically what it's saying is that, we can't exist without other people. We were not even born without our mother and father getting together, or an egg and a sperm getting together. We can't feel lonely if we've never had people around us. We can't feel sad if we've never felt happiness. So it's all of these things that it's a concurrence. So we're not actually ever really alone, right? Because we have people, there's society, there's somebody that made this table that my phone is sitting on so that I can do these meditations. It's those things all around us. There was a lovely excerpt from a monk when somebody asked him if he was lonely. Shifu Shengyen. He said, "How can I be lonely?" When he opens the book, it's the scriptures of people from 5,000 years ago talking to him. It's an ant that's walking along the room. Here there's so many things that somebody clearly made this room and the floor that I'm sat on. And so we're not alone because there's these remnants of people all around us. It's our perspective of what we need in order to not feel loneliness. Another quote that I like from Thich Nhat Hanh is, if you want to heal your loneliness, you first have to learn how to heal yourself, be there for yourself, and cultivate your own garden of love, acceptance, and understanding. So if we feel comfortable within ourselves, if we like our company, then it will be difficult to feel lonely. And there's a lot of single people out there in their 40s, 50s, 60s that have been single for a really long time, and they don't feel lonely because they've reached this point of comfort, of their own garden of love and acceptance and understanding. They understand themselves, and of course they feel lonely here and again, but it doesn't consume them where it's this overwhelming kind of sense of I must get rid of this loneliness. It's more of like, I feel lonely today. Okay, I'm going to sit with that. That's how it is today. When I used to work in psychology and people complained of loneliness, we used to say, okay, so what kind of support groups can you get involved with, or activities can you get involved with? What family or friend members can you call? What can you do to get rid of this loneliness? And I guess, I used to sit there sometimes and think, but I feel so lonely, and I do all of these things that I'm telling them to do, and I feel completely alone. A guy who's married with a family will come in and say that he feels lonely. And so what is it really? Because that doesn't help it. That pushes it. It pushes it away and masks it. It's a distraction. And then when that distraction is gone, the loneliness is still there. So let's stab this loneliness with an arrow instead of saying, is the loneliness is a cause because we're not around other people. That's a lie. I felt lonely many a times in a relationship, many a times in a group of my friends and my family, for instance. I completely feel alone because nobody is like me or understands really why I live the life that I live. So, it's about what is that loneliness about? And is it because we don't feel like we belong? Well, then let's sit with that today, and let's explore why we don't feel lonely. Let's stop looking for outside sources to fill the loneliness, because that doesn't fill it. It just stops it for a certain amount of time. And then we come back home and we're alone, and the loneliness comes back. So let's make friends with it. It's my cheesy coin phrase I really like. I'm just going to keep it. I'm sure people are like, oh God, that when I say let's make friends with some emotion, but it's my thing. Okay, so one thing, Adang Pema Chodron is a really good person, especially if you don't believe in Buddha. She's a nice person to read. She's a female who was married and then gave up this, the whole life to become a nun. And she has a really nice way of writing and a way of describing Buddhist views. But she talks about this thing where, if you have a page in front of you and you draw a line down the middle, if you're on the left side of the page or the right side of the page, whatever it is, we know what to do, we know who we are, we know where we stand. And then if you sit in the middle of the page, it's all of a sudden like, what do I do now? I don't know how to be in the middle. I'm either this way or I'm this way. And being in the middle is something that's quite confusing and that we don't know how to deal with. And I remember when I was going through puberty, I had quite a lot of changes going on, like emotional stuff. And my parents took me into counseling. And so the goal, right, was for me to be happy and for me to be this like stable person. I mean, little did I know at 12 that I would never be stable, and I love that I'm never stable. But you know, the goal was to be happy. And I remember my mom was asking me how I was feeling, how things were going. My mom is a wonderful, amazing, like compassionate person, just naturally amazing person. And I said to her, "Oh, Mom, you know, I've been happy, but I've had a couple of sad days, and I don't know what's wrong with me, why I can't just be happy." And she just gave me the biggest hug, and she said, "Everybody's sad sometimes. I'm sad sometimes. It's okay to be sad. You know, we're all human." And that's what she was telling me, that it's okay to be in the middle of that I don't have to be over here and I don't have to be here. I can be right in the middle of the page. I can be both, you know, and that's I guess what we need to have our mind frame, is that there is no right or wrong way to feel. It's if we can accept feeling this unpleasant feeling, this, you know, we're sat here crying, feeling lonely, feeling upset, feeling whatever it is. But if we can sit with that and be okay with it, that's the middle of the page. So we're going to work on finding what Pema Chodron calls a cool loneliness during today's session. So loneliness that we feel, but it's cool, you know, it's all right, it's cool. We can feel it, we can sit with it, we can explore it. So on that note, let's make any final adjustments. And if you're not already in your meditation position, whatever that is, then lie down or sit in a chair or straighten the back. So finding lots of length, either closing the eyes or finding a soft gaze. Visualizing our open space. Generally somewhere high up where we're overlooking spaciousness, overlooking something we can see endlessly for miles and miles. What do we smell? What do we feel? What's around us? Remembering this is a place of non-judgment. This is a place where we can explore new options, gain different perspectives, try new things. We can't fail in this space. There's no mistakes. There's only curiosity and room for growing development. Starting to focus on the breath as we inhale deeply through the bottom of the belly all the way up to the shoulders. And exhale, emptying out the lungs, the chest, the ribs, and the stomach fall back towards the spine. Inhale deeply. Exhale, relaxing, letting go of any tension. Inhaling this white cloud, this white light of peace, of compassion, of belonging. Exhaling out any unpleasant feelings, perhaps loneliness, sadness, anger. Inhaling a white light of belonging, peace and calm. Exhaling out a black cloud of anything that no longer serves us. Exhaling it out into this vast, massive space that it disappears. And if you have a problem with this inhaling, you're not really unsure what it means to inhale this white light, simply repeating peace, belonging as we inhale, or whatever words resonate for you. And then exhale, I like to imagine that my thoughts are just being, that they're coming out of my nose or my mouth, however you're breathing. And they're being dissipated into this big space in front of me. So as we focus on the breath, I'm going to read a little excerpt from an article by Pema Chodron titled 6 Kinds of Loneliness. We give up believing that being able to escape our loneliness is going to bring any lasting happiness or joy or sense of well-being or courage or strength. Usually we have to give up this belief about 1 billion times, again and again, making friends with our jumpiness and dread, doing the same old thing 1 billion times with awareness. Then, without our even noticing, something begins to shift. We can just be lonely with no alternatives, content to be right here with the mood and texture of what's happening. The point is that in all these activities, we are seeking companionship in our usual habitual way, using our same old repetitive ways of distancing ourselves from the demon loneliness. Could we just settle down and have some compassion and respect for ourselves? Could we stop trying to escape from being alone with ourselves? What about practicing not jumping and grabbing when we begin to panic? Relaxing with loneliness is a worthy occupation. As the Japanese poet Ryukin says, if you want to find the meaning, stop chasing after so many things. So with that, we're going to stop our habitual patterns of this need to escape and jump away from the loneliness. In our safe place, our deep inhales and deep exhales. What does it feel like to be lonely? Where do you feel it in the body? Is it a sensation in the gut? Is it a sensation maybe the chest is tight, shoulders, the heart? Maybe we feel it now when we think about it. It's perfect. It's a great opportunity to explore this emotion. Maybe we feel the heart, like for me, I feel kind of a clenching in my heart almost. It's my gut, I kind of want to crawl into myself. I just want somebody to embrace me. That's what, so I get small so that I can be embraced. What thoughts spin around the head? And try not to get into this negative pattern, so with the thoughts that are spinning around, be an observer of them. Oh yeah, I think that I'm the only one that's lonely. Yeah, I do think that. And later on, because we don't have time today, but maybe a different time I'll do loneliness, now that I've introduced it. But, think of how realistic those thoughts are. Are you really the only person that's alone? No, I know that I'm not. So maybe finding a sense of belonging and knowing that there's other people feeling like this, especially now. There's so many people living alone like me. I spoke to a couple of my friends last night, and one of them also lives alone. She feels sometimes the same way I do, so... What other thoughts are spinning around? Is it that, you don't belong anywhere, or that you don't have a part in this world? Again, to someone somewhere you do. So we have to become aware of what thoughts are spinning around in order to rationally think about them, to take this time and space. And is this loneliness, is it worse on certain days or at certain times? Or maybe after you speak to certain people or watch something on TV or watch couples in real life or families. What is the loneliness about? And I'm going to redirect you to, again, not to dwell in the negative thoughts that might be spinning around. The observer. Imagine as if you're the psychologist and somebody is talking to you about the loneliness, and okay, that's interesting. You're trying to understand what this loneliness is about for the other person, but it's your loneliness. And just as you could sit in a chair and hear about somebody else's loneliness and be okay with it and feel compassion for them, the goal is to get to be the person sitting in the chair for your own loneliness. And as Pema Chodron says, 1 billion times you're going to have this awareness, 1 billion times you're going to escape the loneliness in the normal way. But the more that we sit with this loneliness, eventually something shifts. Sit with the uncomfortableness, sit with how the body's feeling with the loneliness. Monitor the thoughts, observe them, don't dwell on them, observe them. Before we finish the meditation for today, recognize the loneliness for what it is. It's impermanent. So now you might feel, this overwhelming sense of loneliness because we're restricted in movement, who we can see. And other, before all this happened, maybe we didn't feel lonely. All feelings, all emotions are impermanent. They're always changing. Even you can get a phone call. When I was speaking to my friends last night, the loneliness went away. So taking out the rucksack, placing in a tool from today's session or a learning point. And I'm going to offer a suggestion perhaps that you could put in the rucksack, is that the next time you feel lonely, and it's, again, I'm not talking about this here and now, but where this loneliness just won't go away and it's this overwhelming feeling that's preventing you from concentrating, from thinking clearly. Sit down on the sofa or outside on a chair, wherever you like, that's, a happy place. Sit with a cup of tea, put your phone down, and do this exercise, however briefly or however long you want to do it for. Sit with the loneliness in the body, in the mind, and make friends with it. And as we close the rucksack up and place it on our backs, the eyes still closed or the soft gaze, visually walking back into the reality that's around us, becoming aware of the sounds around us. When you're ready, gently opening the eyes, blinking in the reality in front of us. And as I recite the 4 immeasurables, filling the space, the room, our hearts, our bodies with compassion, thinking of somebody you'd like to dedicate this practice to that perhaps needs some strength, some extra love today. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never be dissociated from the supreme happiness which is without suffering. May they remain in boundless equanimity, free from attachment to close ones and rejection of others. And I dedicate this practice to all of you. Thank you for joining me very much. I hope you found some comfortableness or some middle pageness, as I'm calling it, in this session today. So I welcome back any feedback, and I